Hello viewers, welcome to the show. It is the Business Express show this Sunday, and today we have a very, very important topic. Of course, if you speak to a number of people, many will tell you it's extremely hard to do business while respecting each and every regulation set out, in that environment where you're playing. Now today, we're trying to, I don't want to use the word challenge that notion, but try to look deeper into that particular notion. And from the start, I want to make this clear that we want to look at how someone can excel in business in a regulated environment, because we have very many businesses. And indeed, if you talk about a number of big players in whatever space they're sitting in, they're actually doing it the right way, following regulations. And again, as usual, on the Business Express show, we have someone who's going to share the experience doing exactly that in one of the most highly regulated sectors or spaces in this economy. Once again, it's the Business Express show, and with me in the studio, as usual, we have someone, a coach from Enterprise Uganda, who's going to help us put a number of things into perspective. Ronald, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, House, for this opportunity. I want to thank those people who have joined us today for the show on the topic which you have discussed, which, as you have rightly said, is one of the bigger challenges of many businesses. Yes. And I'm very excited that you have joined us. I'm looking forward to a show where we learn, we grow, and we make sure our businesses are creating the opportunities for others that they should.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Ronald.
Yes.
Then our special guest is none other than Gonsha Rehema. She's the doctor, and she's the MD, that is Managing Director of Extra Care Pharmacy. She's going to share with us her experience. Rehema, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Doctors have few words. But we'll wait to hear from her. Once again, viewers, it's the Business Express show. I don't know, before we go into, because as usual, we're going to have a little video montage that's going to set the pace for us, the discussion for today, just to get a feel of what Dr. Rehema here does and how she came up with that business idea, and how she has been able to really play in that space, because we all know that the pharmaceutical industry is really, really highly regulated, but she's been able to actually enter there, build it, and grow. Anything that has touched your attention this week, Ronald?
Yeah, I think certainly this week, I think those of you who watched the news before, there was the question of the rains not arriving when they were expected, and being in an agricultural country, many times that presents a challenge. And I think when I was looking at the story, just as we waited to get into the show, for me, it was one of the things which all businesses need to get used to. The fact that sometimes things just don't go as planned. If you expect the rain today, it doesn't come. And when you talk about regulation, which we are going to be talking about today, it's one of those things, if you don't kind of address it the way you should, you find yourself in a position where everything is a shock. You are shocked that you had to pay a trading license. You are shocked that that the council has come to visit you. And I think, as we discussed, for me, that will be how do we make sure that we minimize the risks, because the same way the farmer says I expected rain in March, are there ways, because the team from the meteorological office was saying that we have anticipated it, we saw the way the winds were moving, but that's information which has to be there. And I think it's a starting point for regulation. Do you have the right information before everything becomes a shock or a crisis?
Beautiful. And indeed, because I mean, it's your responsibility as a business person to actually know the kind of regulations you need for your operation. And of course, on this show, the Business Expression, we are committed to sharing all this information. Of course, Enterprise Uganda is supporting the show with the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, because we know that many a time a number of businesses actually fail or get particular challenges because of ignorance. But like they say, ignorance is no defense.
Yes.
Now, at that point, viewers, we're going to have a little video montage about Dr. Rehema here to get to know the kind of guest we have in the house today. I'll ask my producer to play that little clip so that we start our discussion there.
I'm called Dr. Gonsha Rehema. I'm a pharmacist by training. I'm currently the best community pharmacist in Uganda, and I'm also the most outstanding pharmacist in Uganda according to MUPUSA, one of the associations in Makerere University. And lastly, I'm the director of Extra Care Pharmacies in Uganda, and I work in Extra Care Pharmacies full-time. Extra Care Pharmacy began in 2013. I registered the company called Extra Care Investments Limited with URSB, and then registered the trade name Extra Care Pharmacy. Then after, I went to National Drug Authority, where I also registered with them, identified a premise where I was going to operate. So they gave me certification, they gave me licensing, and I started operating in 2013. Why I ventured into pharmaceutical business? Number one is because I'm a pharmacist, like I said earlier. And during this pharmacy training, I had a very heavy bias for clinical pharmacy. I used to perform so well in clinical pharmacy, and I also went and did internship in Mulago Hospital for a full year. And then after internship, I went and studied pharmaceutical care in the United States of America at a university called Wilkes University. And when I was at that university, I concentrated on studying pharmaceutical care, which is like one of the highest practice of clinical pharmacy. So I developed, or I have very good skills in clinical pharmacy. So it's something that I still wanted to go on practicing and implementing, and sort of using the same skills to benefit people in communities. How I have managed to build a business, it has been a lot of hard work, but with a lot of success attached. One of the things I have done is that I have worked so hard. I have sat and planned, put up a lot of structures. I have drawn business plans and made up strategic decisions and sort of plans that are supposed to be implemented as the company grows. That has been one of the reasons. Then number two is that I'm a very strong trainer. When I get up people, like the staff I get, I give them a lot of training. And when I train them a lot, somehow I keep on building the team. So if the whole team knows what they are doing, eventually the company grows. Then factor number three is that me personally, I never get content that I have or I know a lot of information. I continue to look for information. I go for continuous training. Whenever I get opportunity to learn anything that is related to business, that is related to pharmacy, that is related to disease and treatment, I make sure I attend and learn. So the continuous learning gives me a lot of edge and a lot of competitive power. I have various principles I sort of hold dear. For example, professionalism. I always do the right thing, whether it's not profitable, whether it's very profitable, etc. I always choose the right thing for the patient. And I make sure I'm making the correct decisions, medically ethical decisions, etc. So that aspect of professionalism gives me a lot of competitive edge. The way staffs are managed in this company, we are like brothers and sisters. The hierarchy of this is the boss, this is the what, somehow is not there. If you came to the company or to our pharmacies and I'm there, you would not easily tell who the boss is. We make sure our staff are motivated, we pay them their salaries, they get everything that is due to them in a timely manner. When, for example, you come buying paracetamol, maybe Panadol. We take time to understand whether you actually know the drug you are buying, whether you're buying it for the correct disease, or whether you're just self-medicating, etc. We've had very many achievements, just people moving on the streets, and even them are saying, if those people hadn't intervened in our lives, we would be dead. Just gives me a lot of satisfaction that there are very many people we've impacted, there are very many people we've given a chance to live. And only that gives me a lot of satisfaction. And then as a company, I've trained very many people. There are very many people I've given an opportunity like to earn, blossom, like giving them a start of career, like making a foundation of people's career. Some leave, it is imperative in a company. People may not be with you for the next 20 to 40 years, but the way people come in and the way they live very changed people. Also, our company is growing. It's growing into branches. It's turning out to be a chain pharmacy. Our business is very highly regulated. It has a lot of taxes attached. You pay taxes to National Drug Authority, you pay the licensing fee, you pay the suitability of premises, and then you pay the changeover pharmacy fees to the same body. After there, you have to go to the Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda and pay subscription for the pharmacist, and then pay developmental fees. After that, you have to pay as you earn. You pay NSSF, and at the same time, you have to file income tax. You have to pay local service tax to the to the municipal or town councils, and you have to pay for all the BIPAND. You pay taxes to the BIPAND, both to UNRA and then the local service, the local council. So the taxing and regulation is just so high for this kind of business. We have a future plan to grow into very many branches, both nationally and globally. I think we shall grow into the East African community countries. It's one of the dreams we have. On top of that, before the global aspect comes in, internationally, we are going to continue growing and finding a way of managing many branches.
Welcome back, viewers. We now have an idea, I'm quite convinced, about the guest we have in the house. That's Dr. Gonsa Rehema, the MD of Extra Care Pharmacies. Mm-hmm. And as you can see, she's a pharmacist and more. But then, most importantly, she also actually monetized that profession. We'll get back to that particular aspect, how a professional can actually monetize that professional qualification they have for where they are seated. But Ronald, before we go into that, your quick thoughts before again we bring in Dr. Rehema.
Yeah, I think thanks Dr. Rehema for sharing with us about the business which you do. I guess people who listen, first of all, get a feel of her story and where she's coming from. Yeah. But it's also quite interesting, the list of the obligations the business has that she shared, and to the topic which we are talking about today. I thought it's a powerful list. Yeah. I mean, you can talk about NDA, you can talk about the association, you can talk about the local council, you can talk about the signpost where you have to possibly contribute something to the road authorities. And I think everyone who gets into business needs to appreciate that that is a reality of the market in which we operate. And I think many times the picture is not well painted as we get into business. Someone will say, I will buy items at 2,000, I'll sell them at 3,000, the margin, I'll have a profit of 1,000 shillings. But that profit, you have to share it with all these lists which has been given for you to be able to be allowed to operate business. And it's very important for every entrepreneur out there to notice that you have to operate in a specific environment, and there are rules in that environment which you operate. And knowing those rules is the starting point. It's a very dangerous thing for you to say, I've put up my signpost outside my shop, and then you are quarreling that someone came and asked. If that's the law of the land, the law of the land is that if you put a signpost on the roadside, you will have to contribute. Now, some people may make the case that possibly there are too many, and I think there are a number of associations. Dr. Emaya will tell us she's part of CASITA, and there are a number of associations which are out to make sure they're arguing the case of the entrepreneur, and that is totally valid.
It's another discussion altogether.
It's another discussion altogether. But as it is, when you are starting a business, there are rules which you have to follow. There are licenses which you need to have, and that license is giving you permission to do a certain business a certain way. That means that the way you saw Dr. Rehema's, the way it was organized, her business, the staff members who she holds, all those are the reasons why they will give her a license to be able to run a pharmacy, so that she has the right people who are prescribing the drugs. I mean, if you bring someone who doesn't have an understanding of what the drug is supposed to do, and me as a patient, I arrive and I have a fever, but I ask for a drug for a cough, and they don't. I mean, she mentioned, I thought it was a very powerful statement, that we try to understand, because most of us self-medicate. We're talking about it in a moment. We will find a way of treating ourselves, but that person is really the first line of defense. That person you meet at the pharmacy is supposed to explain to you that this drug which you are taking works this way. It will make you weak in the morning, and if it makes you weak in the morning, will you be able to work the next day? But there is this other drug which works differently. That person has to do it, and that's a human resource issue, and that, I think, was what the licensing authority is trying to do, that the right person is there to protect the lives of Ugandans.
Beautiful. Great. Now, Dr. Rehema, let me come to you. We already have a background. We now know who you are, but someone listening, and especially because the topic for today is looking at playing in a regulated environment. So someone listening might have a question and say, after meeting all those obligations, can someone really do business? What is your experience?
Thank you very much, Charles. I'll start by giving a background why they say pharmacy is a highly regulated business. You do not wake up one day and open a shop and display drugs and start selling. You do not. There are people responsible. There are people moving around the whole country trying to trace people who are opening up such because you are supposed to fulfill requirements of different bodies. I'll give an example. When I was starting this extra care pharmacy, I had to go to URSB and register the company, meaning all pharmacies are formal businesses. There is no pharmacy that is an informal business. So when I went to URSB, I had to come up with a memorandum and articles of association, and then I had to file, reserve a name, file, and then I had to make sure I get the Form 7, Form 20, certificate of registration, and on top of that, I have to make sure every year I file returns and update the URSB that I am still functioning and the company is still in existence. Now, that is one. Then number two, when I was starting, I had to get all those proof of registration and legal documents and go to National Drug Authority and tell them about my intention of starting and operating a pharmacy. And the National Drug Authority also gave me their needs, etc. But I want you to notice that all of these places you're going to, there is a certain amount of money you pay to them, and a certain amount of subscriptions that you keep paying on a yearly basis. So when I went to National Drug Authority, they told me to hand in the articles, a memorandum and the articles of association. They told me to hand in the certificate of registration, the forms and etc., proof of ownership, and then lastly they said we need a covering pharmacist. A covering pharmacist is the supervising person for this entity. So this business is regulated to an extent that it has a consultant there that has to look at the operations and everything to do with that pharmacy on a daily basis. And that consultant is the pharmacist. So by the time they were asking me for a pharmacist that is going to do the supervisory role of the company, of the pharmacy, I was the one. So I handed in my documents. I had to move to the Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda. Now this is the body. I had to move to the Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda and process my documents, the certificate of practice, and then an annual membership document that you keep getting on a daily basis. Yes, and then also proof that I'm a registered pharmacist with the Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda. Even if you're a pharmacist, you've finished university, you've done internship, if you do not get registered in that association, you are legally not allowed to operate as a pharmacist in this country. So I had to also process all those, and then I got all those documents and brought them to National Drug Authority. I'm sure the viewers are getting a feel of the regulation in this kind of business,
especially those that are announcing ambitions of joining the pharmaceutical world, because you see, part of the reasons why we have these Sunday sessions is also to teach people what is required to play in particular spaces. So I think it's now coming out in, they say 3D. Yes.
So when all these documents with National Drug Authority, they say there are, now since you've fulfilled all these requirements, now go and look for a premise, a place where you are going to operate from. So I had to look for a premise, and then this premise has specifications that are written in the law. The NDA Act, etc. You can, and then it has guidelines, etc. You can get them from the National Drug Authority website. So I had to look for a premise that hits all those requirements. So the first premise I got was in Gayaza Trading Center. And I'm sure many people know Mirembe Stage. At Mirembe Stage, there is a pharmacy called Extra Care Pharmacy at the camera, where the camera is. That is where I got the first premise. So they will measure the width, they will look at the walls, they will look at the roofing. You said these drugs just have a lot of requirements they need to just remain stable. So when I got this premise, one of the inspectors in National Drug Authority had to come and look at the premise and measure and say, does it have cobwebs? Does it? How is the wall? Are there molds? And then they will go around it. Is there any water? How are the toilets? They will go through all that. And then when they are satisfied that the premise is suitable for handling human life, they will go ahead and certify and give you an approval. So from National Drug Authority, you get a license for the pharmacy. And then at the same time, you also get another document they call suitability of premises. So when they give you those two documents, you are ready to operate. So when I got those documents, this was in 2013, I went back and put up a basic shelves, and then did my shopping list and put up some counters and started operating.
Beautiful. And I think we'll get back to that, how you began, how you mobilized the money to get started. Because I know the number of people, young people, ladies, and of course old people alike, who are wondering, okay, we've heard that story, but how did she begin? Where did she get the money? But we'll get to that. At that point, Ronald, I'll come to you on that. The issue of regulation is very important for business. But the way it is, most of the time, I mean, we just start. In fact, the biggest headache that most people look at is getting the money.
Yes.
And once they get the money,
Dive in.
they dive in, and then they start getting shock after shock.
Yes.
What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think as Gonsha has mentioned, the specific industry she speaks of is heavily regulated, but it's also true that all other industries, in one way or the other, are regulated. URSB is still going to register other businesses, and many times in Uganda's entrepreneurial space, someone will start the business and start moving. I think what the entrepreneur, and there is a place for that surely, because many times you're saying, you know what, I'm starting a restaurant, I think let me just find a place and the tables
and a good
people
cook and a good cook
and a good cook, and we see when the license comes to for the restaurant,
or deal with it.
But the toilet is right next to the kitchen, it's not right. And that's the debate. I think that's the point which Gosha is making. But I think what is critical is to first of all appreciate, why does this regulation exist? I think that's a point we need to pull out. When she says that they want a room which is not molding, why would they want a room which is not molding? Because possibly there is a drug which you could put next to that wall, and that drug gets contaminated by the wall, and then you dispense that drug to a Ugandan, and that person is going to get ill. The same is true with a restaurant. If you are running a restaurant and your kitchen is right next to the toilet, the regulator, the person who gives you the license to run the restaurant, is going to say, no, we can't have this kitchen right there. So it is important to appreciate that regulation shouldn't be viewed as something which is supposed to constrain the business owner, but it is something which is supposed to help you do business the right way. In a way, the regulator is representing the interests of the general public. They are saying, you know what, by the time we take a glass of juice, we don't know where it has come from. Me, I've come to your restaurant, I'm taking a glass of juice. But if the regulator is saying, but your water source, we see where it is coming from, that is not the right water source, which should be making juice, then there is a case there. So I think it's important, first of all, appreciate that regulation is put in place to help. Now, many times that is not how regulation is packaged, and when you think about it, we all view it as just a constraint on our business. And I think there is a case. Sometimes the regulator needs to do a better job at explaining why we have these regulations, and not just to tell you that you pay a license and you start working, but they have to explain that the reason why the inspector comes, because the inspector has the benefit of the information in the whole region, that if you do this kind of thing this way, there will be a problem.
And another important point she raises, which I think also, because this show is not only watched by the business community, but then also people in policy making, and probably regulators as well. Because the regulator also needs to know where the business people are coming from in certain respects. And because regulation is supposed to enable and protect, it's for the betterment. In journalism, we call it public interest. So, but it should be able to enable that kind of thing. So probably at a certain point, we'll be able to also bring in regulators. You know, to do the explanation, but then also to understand where the business community are coming from in certain areas.
Because actually, when you don't have the information, it becomes very complex. Because when you ask an average business owner, everything looks like a tax. I have to pay tax to NDA, tax to, but they are not exactly taxes. They are actually kind of licensing fees which are supposed, but if that is not fully explained, then there is certainly a problem. But I think the second thing which is important from what Gonsha shared is the fact that when you are preparing to start a business, it isn't just looking for who is the wholesaler of the drugs. Because many times when you start a business, say I have my 2 million, how many boxes of Panadol can those give me? If there are 20 boxes, then I'm ready to what? To start. Sometimes when you're starting a business, those are real business costs, and they are sunk costs. They are costs which have to come ahead of beginning. Because if you begin without them, you are going to find that the business is going to be hit with penalties which it shouldn't be hit with. So it is important that when you are planning, and that's why it's important to sit back a bit and possibly go and engage with someone. If you want to start a family, or rather a pharmacy, you come to Dr. Gonsha and say, Dr. Gonsha, the truth is, what needs to happen? They say, this person you need to see, this person you need to see, this person you need to see. So we need to make sure that we see the background of the business before we see the face. When you ask people, are you going to start a pharmacy? They say, do you know anyone who can make shelves, good shelves? I want someone to make good shelves. But the good shelves is really down the line. The real big thing which you have to start with is understanding, how does this business become formal?
Beautiful. Dr. Gonsa, I'll come back to you on because Ronald there touches it a bit, on the relevancy of actually playing by the rules. What benefits have you seen coming your way? Because I know you're in this industry, and I know, like in most business operations, you'll have people who play by the book, and then you'll have others who will try to bend them a bit and pay the cost. So from the benefit side, what has been the good that has come out of doing what you're supposed to do from the regulatory side of things before we go to other aspects?
When you do things the right way, there is a way you save the business from excessive penalties and excessive costs and etc. that we would be facing. I'll give an example. If you refuse to file the income tax, however long the taxman will it take without coming, he will still come.
They will finally arrive.
And then when they come, there is high probability that they can give you a penalty that can sweep all the capital you have. So for business continuity, just adhere to regulations. And then another example is, for example, if you do things that National Drug Authority doesn't want. For example, the drugs that are supposed to be in a controlled fridge, a pharmaceutical fridge, and this fridge is on day and night for a full year. It never goes off. It consumes a lot of electricity, and there is a way we clean it, there is a way we repair it, just to make sure the drugs are stable at a particular temperature condition. Now, when you say, this is very expensive, I can do away with it, let me stock the drug and keep them out of the fridge. If NDA, National Drug Authority, ever comes and finds those drugs out of the fridge, and they may go ahead and act. What if they say close the business for 1 month, and then
as you sort yourself,
first sort yourself, get a fridge, and then come back to us, call us back to come and inspect and prove you are complying, and then we shall open your business. So if they close the business for 1 month, where are the salaries going to come from? Where is rent going to come from? So by not complying, you cripple your own business.
I get you.
So I just comply fully. I know it costs much, but you rather remain with a little and then grow slowly but steadily.
Beautiful. Now, moving on. Again, I know some of the viewers might be wondering and saying, okay, we know Rehema, has a background in pharmacy. She's now owning a chain of them. And I mean, you look very comfortable lady and that kind of thing, but how did it all begin? How did you, first of all, get even the vision and saying, I should invest in pharmacy and not probably a clinic or a retail shop and that kind of thing? But most importantly, how did you mobilize the resources to get started?
Okay, there are like 3 questions in the same statement. How I got an idea that I can start and run a pharmacy. Number 1, I am a pharmacist.
Okay.
And I just have a lot of pharmaceutical knowledge. And then number 2, I have a strong bias in clinical pharmacy. You see, pharmacy as a course is a very wide course. When you go to that university, they are going to teach you a lot of information. And you are not going to apply all the information at the same time. Me, I decided to do some bit of specialization. At the pharmaceutical school, you study a lot of manufacture. So you go to the industry, you're tabulating, you make tablets, you make syrup, you are mixing, and then after that, they will give you the part of quality control. You go to the lab, you're checking tests after, like the real organic chemistry, the real chemistry. And then after that, you are in the hospital. You're seeing disease after disease. You are seeing how diverse and uncoordinated, but all driving to the same science. So, me, I decided to pick out a certain aspect of that pharmaceutical education and apply.
Okay.
That is number one. So, number one is good clinical pharmaceutical knowledge.
Okay.
Then number two, the kind of background I come from. My mother was a businesswoman and is still a businesswoman. My father was a businessman. And almost everyone I was living with was a business person. And then I grew up in a highly enterprising town. I grew up in Busia. And Busia just had a lot of business. So I got a lot of exposure to different businesses, different retail, etc. And my mother specifically, I don't know why, she specifically gave me a lot of skills to do with business. I remember the time when I was in S4 vacation. When I came out of school, I've come for work, she was like, "Aha, it's very good you've come. What you're going to do, you are going to run that shop." The shop she had. So she gave me, this is the capital you have. Me, I'm going to Kampala. I'm going to find how I can start in Kampala. You are going to run this shop and you are going to make profit and feed the family. You are going to make sure you restock. And she disappeared. That is S4 vacation. You can imagine how much thinking. I worked so hard, I thought so hard, and then I would travel to Kampala and then looking for stock. I had to be sure that I choose the correct stock that I will sell so that we feed. So this woman just gave me a lot of practical training. And then apart from that, the time she would travel to Nairobi still to restock. That time she would travel with me, and then we go to Nairobi and she seated back and it's you to look for the stock. And I think this woman intentionally trained me.
Okay.
So that is factor number two. Then number three is when I was in Makerere University at School of Pharmacy. During third year, I looked for a placement to start practicing out the skill. So I got a pharmacy. It's called Joram in Kawempe, and I started helping out in that pharmacy. So this particular man trained me. He used to give me a lot of work. I think he really trusted me, so he sort of nurtured me. And when I came to the time during internship, like after the 4 years of training, now the 5th year of internship, I would work in Mulago as an intern pharmacist. And then in the evening, I would go and, we used to call it Cheyo, I would go and work in another pharmacy in the evening. That pharmacy was called Vine. So I would go and practice my skills and help out patients. So I would earn twice. I would earn during the salary of Mulago Hospital, and then in the evening I would earn the salary from Vine. So after internship, I just had a lot of skill and a lot of confidence. Then
Plus some resources as well.
Plus some resources. Then immediately after internship, somehow, like I did very many things for Mulago Hospital. I was the interns pharmacist president, and I came up with a lot of intervention for both the profession and the hospital. For example, I started up the mentorship and training for pharmacists. You know, the theory you study in school, when it comes to practice, there is a way it is a little hard to put it into practice. Yeah. You need a mentor to sort of guide you. So it's me who started that program and started drawing up a curriculum.
I hear you. Sorry, Dr. Gonza, I'll cut you short. We're going to take a very short commercial break. Quite interesting and riveting story there. We're going to pick it exactly from there because I'm very sure the number of viewers who are really quite interested in how that story is flowing. We're going to pick it from there after this very short commercial break. Welcome back, viewers. It's once again the Business Express Show, and today we have a special topic and a special guest to actually help us through it. We're looking at how you can actually thrive and build a good business within a regulated environment. And with us in the studio today, we have Dr. Gonza Rehima. She's the Managing Director and Proprietor of Extra Care Pharmacies. She's a pharmacist and a businesswoman and running a chain of pharmacies. So before we went for the break, she was telling us her background, how she went or she came into the business of running pharmacies, where she picked the inspiration, and we had begun on that journey to where she is now. I know you had already told us about your days at Makerere and the kind of inspiration you were able to build among students who are doing pharmacy as a course. I don't know, we can start from there. So you at Makerere, you've become the president of that community. You've come up with some interventions. So what happens from there?
So there was an Indian who was starting up a pharmaceutical distribution company that needed someone to work with. So the Indian went to the principal pharmacist of Mulago Hospital and asked the principal pharmacist to identify someone. So the principal pharmacist gave in my number. And I started working with this Indian. That was immediately after internship. You know, when you finish internship, you wait for a certain period to be registered.
Yes.
So in that period, you study and then do a certain hard exam with the Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda. And then after that, you wait to be registered. So in that period, I started working with this Indian man. He's called Mr. Sitaram of Viram Healthcare. Now, I worked so diligently with this man. He took me to almost every hospital of this country. And to me, being young, I was so excited about the travel. And the man was so positive towards me. And he gave me an assignment. I would have to come up with slides, presentations, and then about his products that he has imported. We go to a certain hospital and the doctors, consultants, etc., and you have to convince them that this drug has this positivity. It is but basing on pharmaceutical and medical information. So I would do the work so well. I would talk, and doctors would even sit on tables. Up to date, this man's drugs are one of the most selling drugs in this country. I did so good marketing for him, and the man was so impressed. Up to this period, every week that man sends me a message. Every week he calls me, that Indian man. So when we were now fully registered, it was time for me to start finding what to do. And somehow we would chat with the man. And one time he said, if you were my child, I would never allow you to look for a job. And then I asked why. He said, you're too innovative, and then you're too good at the work you do. Such innovative people, it's good they go and create than go and sit in offices. And And a man said, if you were my child, I would never encourage you to look for a job. I would encourage you to face the world and innovate something. So when I came out, I already had my plans of starting a pharmacy. So I told him, and he said, no problem. You start a pharmacy. Just know you are going to attract all people in wherever you're going to put a pharmacy. So I told him, but I have little money. He said, you see, I have all my Indian friends. Your character, you're too trustworthy. I'm going to introduce you to someone. I want to introduce you to someone to give you stock. Get any stock you want. Go and make money and pay this money. Do you hear me? And I was like, okay. So he took me to one of the pharmaceutical companies in town, and they just started giving me stock without documenting anywhere, without making any agreements, etc. So the stock they gave me, I combined with the little money I had, and I was able to start.
Beautiful. You can hold it there. We now got the start and how it's Dr. Gonza here begins her journey. I don't know what you're picking from that, Ronald, so far.
Yeah, I think Dr. Gonsha really shares some very powerful messages which we have talked about here and which we believe in a lot as Enterprise Uganda. I think there are some messages which I hope the viewers have managed to kind of tease out. The first one was the 2 schools she attended. She seems to have done pharmacy at Makerere University and done business in Mami University, because there are 2 universities which she seems to have to have attended. And I think it's important to appreciate that the 2 universities are important. And I think a parent who is watching out there, you are part of the education structure of your child, and it's important that you do that, because it appears, I mean, when you talk about pharmacy in this country, it's not a course everyone goes to. When I was in school, I say, as a pharmacist, it is something you have to give a bit of respect to people who end up in what? In pharmacy. So the point is that it's a challenging course. And such a challenging course, you would imagine the parent would be saying, now you, since you are heading towards biology, you go and read books and concentrate. Yet here we see the mother saying that, you know what, you have finished the books and you have done well and good. I want now you to come to my University of Business, and you make sure that that happens. And that's where the transfer of knowledge happens. It is that environment which helps Dr. Gonsha to see business opportunities that exist. It's that environment which helps her not to fear risk to the point of saying, because I mean, in P4 she's rather in S4, she's running a retail shop and restocking it. And it's important, I think that's a very key message. It's important that we make sure both those schools, the University of Home and the University of School, and they can complement each other. Because she did succeed in pharmacy, but then the business came in to help her run a successful pharmaceutical business. It means that both these schools taught her a key lesson. So we shouldn't say that one school should be ignored. Both schools are important, and if they complement each other, we can see the success like the one which Gonsha is having. Then she talked about diligence at work. It's important. I mean, some people who are viewing are possibly still in employment. But when you are in employment, your employer may be your first business partner. Your employer. But your employer is not going to be your business partner if you are doing a lousy job at work. If you are not delivering, if you are late at work, if you are not completing assignments, you can't expect your employer to say, I will call some friends so that they can give you supplier credit, which I'll talk about in a moment. So we see here that Dr. Gonsha used this as a platform, not only to make networks for herself, but to give value to her employer. Now, we need to remember that in employment, that is one of the first places you practice entrepreneurship. If you can be an entrepreneur employee, if your employer can say things like, you are innovative, I like the way you've come up with solutions, then that means that gives you credibility. That gives you the starting point for you to be able to say that I can be able to shift and start my own business. So if you don't hear your employer saying you are innovative, if you don't hear your employer saying, I like the way you do this, be worried. Don't say that I am tired of this employer, I need to go out and do my own job. Because your business is taking you. You are the same person. So you need to ask yourself, even in this employment I have, and I know some people who are watching the show, you are still in employment and you are contemplating getting into a business. Those people you are working with, they are the starting point.
Yes.
Now the third and final point is the point she made about supplier credit. We have talked about this before. Whenever we talk about capital, where capital comes from, because that's the question you asked, but she said that the reason why I was able to get the stock in the shop at first was because of the call of one man to a friend who says, there's this young girl who is here, you give her some drugs, she will pay you back. And that endorsement from the gentleman who is actually trusted, that endorsement is what is actually pushing. So we need to see that when we are starting businesses, capital is not the cash which you hold. The networks which you have, the reputation which you have, all those are starting points which you can use as a platform to be able to build capital. And we saw that very clearly in Rehema's story. She said that I did such a good job for my employer that when I said I want to get into the pharmacy business, he's the one who offered, let me call. And he calls 3 friends. And in those 2 calls, you get stock worth 30 million. Now, if you go to a bank and you want to write, then they say to you, Dr. Gonsha, what do you own? You say, I have nothing. The bank will say, I can't lend you the money. But the point is that this call, because of the reputation she had built, that call managed to open that door. So we see an opportunity here. We see something which can be able to be done to be able to help us. So one of the things which I think is critical as we reflect on what she shared is that when we talk about supplier credit, your reputation, the name which you have built, is also capital in a way. It can open a door. She said that this gentleman still calls her every week. It means they built a relationship. So if you are at your employer's place right now, will your employer call you as soon as you leave and say, you know what, I have seen another opportunity for you? Or your employer will also be celebrating that, hey, this man has left us, we thank God.
Good riddance.
Good riddance. Great. So those are a couple of the ideas I see here.
Thank you, Ronald. And I really see a very important currency there, being integrity as well. Because really it's one of the glue that's binding quite a lot of things there. But I think you've rightly put it quite well. Viewers, you can be part of this show, and we're going to put our WhatsApp number on screen. If you have any question or comment that you want to direct at Dr. Gonza here or Ronald, you'll be able to actually send those through so that we, the idea behind this show is to share as much practical information as possible to you, our viewers who are watching us. Now, moving on, Dr. Gonza, so you start the business, you've started moving. I know, of course, we've already seen a bit of, some of the achievements you've seen over time. But just paint for us that picture when you began, this business. How was it like? Of course, we've tackled the aspect of regulation, the many regulations you had to deal with. But then, of course, now you've begun, you have to deal with workers, yourself, you have to deal with many other things. You have the suppliers on one side. How was the experience like? What was tough at the beginning, and how did you manage?
When I began the business, I was one person in the business.
Okay.
I was the pharmacist, the person who is supervising. And then I was the cleaner. And then I was the purchasing manager.
Okay.
I was the finance personnel. I was everything. And this is common to most SMEs. Whenever you're starting out, you're either alone or with a small team of people.
Yes.
So with me, I started alone. And then when I started, somehow For some reason, I think I was working well. The population was really coming. And I just didn't know how to manage everything alone. So I decided to look out for workers. I brought one of the girls that could do the cleaning and also be a cashier. And then before I knew it, I had to operate and open the business for very long hours, which I could not manage alone. I had to look for another medical personnel to come. And then we were doing things manually. You know how a pharmacy is. One pharmacy can have up to 3,000 drug items. That is how complex those pharmacies are. You just look at those boxes, but you don't know these are totally different items and different drug molecules. So everything was becoming complex. I couldn't now count and take track of the inventory. Some inventory was disappearing, and I was like, now I have to get organized. So I continued bringing people on board and trying to increase the controls, and that's how it began with me.
I hear you. Beautiful. Now, when it comes to organization, because that's one of the toughest stages that most businesses grapple with. We shared here an experience of one of the business people. I think his downtown is in Chikubo. You know, he's dealing with a lot of turnover. So much so that they bring him breakfast and he has no time to eat it. By the time they bring lunch finds breakfast there. So that's the life he has lived for quite many years. But you, I mean, I see you quite relaxed. And clearly you seem exactly. And I haven't seen you panicking to go and pick your phone to see what's happening and that kind of thing. So how did you make the transition structure? Because you're not running one pharmacy, you have more than one pharmacy. How have you been able to, manage that for the purpose of our viewers that are in that particular space?
One of the things and the direction I'm taking is to bring in technology into managing the business. Computer system. Like I've just shared, managing the stock manually was just too complex and not feasible, totally not possible. So I had to think of bringing a computer. And when I talk about computer, I'm not meaning drawing tables in the computer, then you're still doing it manually, you're using Excel, it will not work. You have to look for a system. And with the time as I'm growing, the system also has to grow. It is now starting to grow into compartments, the purchasing entity being alone, and then this branch having its unit, and then the other branch having its unit, and then the other branch having its unit, and then the other branch having its unit, but all these branches interlinked. So I am looking and following up technology very cleanly.
Beautiful.
That's how it is working out for me.
That's beautiful. The other issue is that most businesses, when they are starting at that early age, before I bring you in, Ronald, they tend to rely a lot on family members. Or you'd call it family labor, to be specific.
Is available.
Yes. And for a number of reasons. Sometimes it could be, actually most of the time, you don't have enough resources to hire, but you can convince a family member to actually come and work pro bono. How did you at some point bring on board family members? And if you did, how did you make them productive?
After the first branch was starting to promise and was making money and was making profit. But I had a second license that was unutilized.
Okay.
You know, when you are a pharmacist, you're given 2 places of operation, maybe because the numbers are not yet sufficient, and they want different communities to get a feel of pharmaceutical help and pharmaceutical care. So you're given 2 licenses. Now, the second license was not being utilized. So I decided to look for another location and start utilizing
second license.
So that is how I ended up opening a pharmacy in Nalukolongo. The first one was was in Gayaza, and is still in Gayaza at Mirembe stage.
Yes.
And then I had to open a second one in Nalukolongo. Along that road, Nalukolongo, Mutundwe Road. When you reach the market, you start sloping.
Okay.
You will see Extra Care Pharmacy on the left. So these are different communities, and you see different communities have different problems. It really stretches you to really think well. So when this second pharmacy was done, I realized I couldn't supervise
The other side.
You see, the pharmacy has the pharmaceutical knowledge, it has the operations, it has the finance, it has many aspects to be taken care of. Now the second one seemed to be far, and I couldn't really have control. So I decided to convince my mother. By then, my mother was not doing so well in her business. I think by then they would export some stuff to Sudan, etc., and then a war broke up, and she lost money. Now, when she lost money, I was like, it is simple. Now you come, we work in the pharmacy.
Knowing her potential.
You see, we've worked together before.
Yeah.
So meaning we can tolerate our tempers, our character, we can think together, we can implement together. So I said, it is simple. You come and work at the second branch. And then it is now me putting out the orders. Initially it was her, I want it done this way. I want it displayed this way. And now it's me saying, now, when you're in the pharmacy, make sure they've swept. Make sure. So she is still there trying to make sure the operations are going as per my direction.
You are now teaching your teacher.
I'm now teaching my teacher.
Yes.
So I go there and do the medical work and see the patients, etc. But she makes sure they have cleaned.
The administration.
She makes sure they've opened, they've closed, the what. Now that operational aspect is for her for that branch.
Beautiful. Ronald, what do we pick from here?
No, I think Dr. Gonsha gives us many powerful lessons. I'll go back a bit to where she started about starting small. I think she mentioned it in passing as the pharmacist, then the cleaner, then the accountant. And I think, as she rightly said, that is the story of anyone who has done business in this country. It is the fact that you have to start and you are everything. And it takes a special amount of humility during that period for you to say that you, with your pharmacy degree, you have also started cleaning the floor. And after cleaning the floor, you lock the gate. And after locking the gate, you do the books. That process is where many of us fail when we are starting. You feel like, I shouldn't be the one really cleaning the floor. And then you put unnecessary costs because you got 2 customers in a day. You have just opened. With 2 customers, you made a good sale, good customer care, but the truth is that the profit you made that day was just 10,000 shillings. If you made a profit of only 10,000 shillings, you can't afford to put a cleaner on it. The only thing you can afford to do is to be the cleaner. So it's important to appreciate that when you talk about starting small, that's the message which we are making. That there is a season in your business when you have to do that. And we saw that, I think there is a show we had here a while back. We saw that even during the COVID period. We were telling people that you may have to return the way things are in business now. You may have to take back some of the roles which you had recruited people because things are tough. When you can't afford 3 cleaners, you have 1. You may be the second cleaner. And they say, hey, MD, you are here with us. You say, yes, I'm here with you. Because times are what? Times are tough. So that's an important thing. Then she talked about and we have a session at Enterprise Uganda we call the man with the key has gone. That process of being the one who has all the power. You are the one who has the key. You are the one who signs the check. You do everything. There is a process where the business needs to let go. You see, she said that she allowed her mom to come and look after the next, but she has to release authority. You can't be the man or the woman with the key in this case.
You have to delegate.
You have to delegate, and that process is a tough one. We do that session every quarter, and it is one of the sessions where we say that, you know what, you need to remember, yes, you have the key, but you need to release it. There are people who are in their 65, 70, but the checkbook is still with them. If they go to hospital,
there was a story, I think, about 2 years ago of a gentleman who was withdrawing it. They had to wheel him on a hospital chair into one of the banks to actually...
Exactly. And when the business is like that, Muzei didn't have a comfortable night, the shop is not open. And why shouldn't it open? Because you didn't have a comfortable night. If you have run the business for 30 years. So there is a point where you need to stop being the man with the key and make sure that you release power. And I think Gonsha talked about that. She talked about technology, another very important thing. I think this is fundamental. She said it's not the computer, it is the software. Now we have a big software community. Many young people have done technology, they have done IT, and they're doing amazing things. But when you talk to them, they are saying that I don't see the market. People are not buying because you bring something on a flash and you tell someone to pay 15 million. Says you are a thief.
What are you saying?
Just a flash. Sell me something which is. But the point is that's the asset.
Yes.
That these softwares, these systems we are talking about, they're being developed. There is a young people, a number of hubs in Uganda are doing it, and they're doing good things. But let's give these young people business. You say, you know what, I'm looking after cattle. Can you make for me something which can help me monitor? And someone will tell you, I can monitor the temperature of your cows. And I can make a software which does that with this small chip. And if I monitor the temperature, you can know which cow is getting sick at what point. You can know which cow is lactating. There are young people who can do that. But us as the people who own money, as the investors, have we appreciated the role of technology as a tool to do business? I think the final one for me is the reverse of roles with Dr. Gonsha's mom. And I think any parent who is watching, it is one of the greatest honor to see the person you mentored be able to even help you out in a tough time. And I think for me that is at the heart of family business. That as we see transition, you say that, you know what, there is something new I've learned. I'm running a different business. There is something you can learn from me. And the mom also has to be a lady of humility. To say that, you know what, the truth is, Gonsha is the doctor. She's the one who understands pharmacies. Me, I don't. Because you said, these boxes, let's mix them up. She says, no, we have to put them like this. But I think that ability to work as a family, we need to make the family energy. Families are doing amazing things. Families bury people. Families do weddings. Families, we need to see families doing business together.
Very good point.
That is something which is powerful.
Thank you, Ronald.
Good.
Dr. Gonsa, before we go to the questions, and there are many that have come through for you, and comments, how do you meet Enterprise Uganda, and what do you pick from there?
How did I meet Enterprise Uganda? I didn't tell you, I'm a board member in Kasita, Uganda.
Okay.
And during our operations, somehow Enterprise Uganda came up to train business people in some skills, and I attended. That's how I came to know about Enterprise Uganda. And then after, they brought out a training module. It's called ETW. I think it is the hardest training module in Enterprise Uganda.
Empreteco.
Whoever has done that, that module successfully is really good. So one of my church members advised me to do that course unit. So I went and applied in Enterprise Uganda, and I did entry PECO, ETW. And I was actually the best student.
Beautiful.
I was the best and most resilient student. But it had a lot of skills that were strategically put together, that were supposed to help a CEO to adjust and also to think very critically. And then the kind of pressure in that, it's like they put together information that is supposed to be taught for a full year, and then they put it together. Is it in two to 1 month period of time? Now you are supposed to hand in assignments, you're supposed to do this, and then at the climax, you're supposed to innovate and implement a business and make a profit and what before you graduate.
Interesting.
It was a very good one.
That's
so
good.
that's how I met Enterprise Uganda, and that's how I have moved with Enterprise Uganda.
Beautiful. Now time to go to the questions and comments that are coming through from our viewers, because we know there are quite a number that watch us with a pen and paper just to learn and pick information. Again, I need to say and state clearly to the viewers out there that this is an extension of Enterprise Uganda's business development service to your operations. So when you see Ronald here, he's come here to teach. When you see Gonza here, she's come here to share practical business experience.
True.
So that's how we do it, and we hope you're actually deriving good dividend out of this. Now I have a question here for you, Doctor. This is he's saying, Dr. Gonza, please shed light on the cosmetic section. How were approvals done to ensure that products had UNBS seal? This is Sisi from Kampala. I think she's trying to ask because she knows that some pharmacies also sell cosmetics. So how are approvals done in that particular area of cosmetics?
It's starting to be a real concern. Can I answer?
Yeah, please.
I think it's now becoming a concern to various communities that cosmetics are into the pharmacy.
Yeah.
I remember not many months back, I was called up by the URA, Uganda Revenue Authority, and they termed it knowledge sharing. And they said, we know you're a very intelligent pharmacist. Tell us what is pharmaceutical practice in this country. So I came and shared and told them the different aspects and the fields of practice of pharmacy in this country. And then after they brought in, now tell us about the cosmetics. What are cosmetics doing in those pharmacies? And they were saying, why are these cosmetics not paying VAT? And they really wanted me to defend and also train them about this. So I will still do the same for that person. You see, when you go to pharmacy school, there is a course unit called the cosmetology. Those creams you're seeing, those what are developed by scientists, and some of the scientists are actually pharmacists.
Okay.
When you talk about cosmetics, what people are having in mind are the Mekako, the Vaseline, the etc. But there are certain forms of those cosmetics that are purely pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
So me, a pharmacist, when I handle this cosmetic in me, I look at that label that has ingredients, and every ingredient there is a pharmaceutical element. So there is a way you cannot differentiate, or you cannot separate certain cosmetics from a pharmacy. And this is there globally.
Yeah.
And in other countries, there are some cosmetics that are sold solely in pharmacies. I'll give you an example. There are some cosmetics that maybe babies are reacting, like Zincast.
Yeah.
You will see a tin and it's chizigo. And a baby is reacting, you use this cosmetic, and it works so well. There are some cosmetics that you will see skin specialists prescribing for particular people, and yet other people are using them as normal Bizigo at home. So this pharmaceutical cosmetic, if you can, cosmetics is actually a pharmacy kind of thing.
I hear you.
When you come to extra care pharmacies, for example, at Mirembe stage, you will see the cosmetic section. But the kind of choice I make for those cosmetics, you cannot come in and win the battle that this is not a drug. They are selectively chosen for those shelving.
I hear you.
I do not stock everything. You will not find, I want to give an example. You will not find Mekako in Extra Care. You will not find those bleaching elements. But there are some items you will find and you think chizigo. And me, I even prescribe it over the counter.
I hear you.
That is it.
Beautiful. And I think some notes has been taken there. So I have someone here watching is saying they know someone who has been practicing pharmacy in the UK for over 2 decades and they would like to come back home and settle in Uganda. What advice would you give?
Let them come. But as they come, they have to realize that these countries are different. Personally, when I was doing a postgraduate training in the US, at the university called Wilkes University in Pennsylvania, there is something I noticed about America. The way they handle things and their regulations is quite different from us. And the way they display their drugs in pharmacies, I got a chance to work in some of the pharmacies in America. I will tell you, the way they do some of those things is very different from here. That is number one. Number two, when you come to Uganda, that person who wants to come, you are going to find totally different diseases. You are going to find malaria that is not in America. And then you will come thinking it is a simple disease. And yet here in Uganda, if not well handled, it's causing renal failure. So the kind of diseases that person is going to find here are totally different.
Beautiful.
So when they come to Uganda, they are not going to open up a pharmacy and operate it. It is legally not allowed. They will close it down. They will tell you, go straight to the Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda, and those people will give you a period of training and then a certain exam that they are supposed to do and pass, and then they will be suitable for the Ugandan market.
Beautiful. I have someone here. He's saying, good afternoon, Business X-Ray team. Thanks for bringing Dr. Gonsa. But can you make any profit apart from avoiding penalties in the highly regulated business? This is Razak in Buikwe. Because some of us, we have clinics, but we are failing because of those high taxes. I don't know what advice you can give them.
You see, business, more especially these medical businesses, are very different kind of businesses from normal businesses. I'm talking like somebody who worked with my mother in an informal business, and then somebody who is working in a purely formal business. When you come to these medical businesses, the pressure is just too high. You have a pressure to perform, or you know, kuwonya. So when people are getting healed, you are getting a turnover. It's like it's your advert. And I'm talking this as I'm currently the best community pharmacist in Uganda, according to Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda. So I'm talking
out of experience.
Out of experience, you have to have a good service. Then number two, you are supposed to have vast knowledge, like wide kind of knowledge in different aspects. I have very good clinical knowledge. I have very good pharmaceutical knowledge, but it is not enough to run a pharmacy.
There's more to that.
There is more to that. You are supposed to have very good financial knowledge. When I was starting, I realized I was lacking in such areas. I went and enrolled up for a course. So I went to UMI and did business administration. And this course shaped me so well, like the business aspect of this company. I started realizing, hey, so that's why Coca-Cola does this. Okay, that's why this is on TV. I started like it was an eye-opener. You, when you will come from school and then start this clinic and then start typhoid, and then this financial aspect, you have no knowledge. You can't even read financial statements.
It's a type of thing.
It's hard.
Sorry.
So I summarize by saying, you analyze your business and see all skills, it will work out.
Beautiful. Ronald, I have something for you here.
Yeah.
Someone is saying, thanks for the show. Can I increase my profits in a business in the short time, but avoid credits? Is a viewer from Fort Portal.
Avoid credit as in debt?
I think debt, that's what he means.
Okay. I think certainly growing a business has a number of things which you should consider. If we take Dr. Gonsha as an example, if you are in a business of trade, and a pharmaceutical business is actually a trade, some are retail, some are wholesale, one of the fastest ways of growing is, first of all, building that reputation by delivering a good customer care. And as the demand increases, you transfer that demand to your suppliers by saying, you know what, I've been taking stock of 10 million. Can I take stock of 20 million? That is the cheapest kind of credit you can get.
Okay.
Because your supplier giving you stock of 20 million and you turn it over in a week, and it used to be 10 million, that extra profit is actually going to end up on your bottom line. But you find that that process is, first of all, you being very honest with the first 10 million which you are getting. If you are getting 10 million and you turned it over and you paid on time, one of the challenges is that many businesses, you go to a dealer and you say, I want supplier credit of 10 million. They say, I'll pay by Monday after next week. And Monday after next week, your phone is not on, and we can't get you. And the moment you destroy that trust, you find that you are entering into more expensive credit. The supplier says, no, you need to bring cash. Now, if you need to bring cash, that means you need to go and borrow. When you go and borrow from the bank, you don't treat them well. You have to borrow from a money lender. And that means that it wipes out the profit you are going to get. So it's important to say, how do I make sure that that asset we talked about, that asset of your reputation, of your word, if you use that asset well, it can be able to offset the cost of credit.
Beautiful. I have another one for you, and I think also on one of the questions, Doctor here will chip in. This is Sembus Ignatius from Mengo. He's saying, my question goes, how can a startup business handle the first return of the business? I think you can handle that bit. Then the other one is, I understand that the only way to start is to start. How can one choose the right team to work with? And I think Dr.
will.
Yes.
No. Yeah. So the first profit, how do you handle that first profit? I think that's the question which they ask. I think the first thing an entrepreneur should appreciate is that the first profit is not yours. It has to go back into that business. Every business, the first profit which you get, there are enough problems, and the business needs you to stay. It means that there is no celebration when that first profit comes. Will you notice you haven't bought a chair for your business, and that first profit is going to be the first money you use to buy a chair, so that the business gets a bit of furniture which it is dealing with. And that process can continue for the first 3 years, for the first 5 years, and you find that it appears the business has given you nothing for the first 5 years, yet it seems to be growing. I think that is what at Enterprise Ghana we call the sacrifice of the entrepreneur. It is usually whenever you hear a story told by the entrepreneur that you people don't know what I went through, that's what they are talking through. That I was growing this baby, the baby was growing, and me, I felt like I wasn't getting anything out of them. But when it starts rolling, the benefit will come. So that's usually where we need to actually start from. I don't know if Gonsha can add.
Gonsha. Yeah. How do you choose the right team to start with?
When you are starting a business, it is hard to tell what the right team is from my experience. You bring people have totally different characters. They are at different level of skill. They are, and it's you supposed to make the team right.
Beautiful.
That was my experience.
Your experience.
But as I grow into now a fully fledged big company, there is a lot I'm learning. You can't run away from human resource management.
Beautiful.
So you have to find a way of like outsourcing. You may not fully outsource, but you have to look for consultants and get counsel from them. That is one of the things. Then number 2, I'm stopping these things of interviews. We talk and then you talk well and I'm like, yo, eh? I'm stopping that thing. What I'm doing is that the interview I'm giving is purely practical.
I hear you.
You come, I'm like, sirina buzibu.
So the con men and con women have learned the tricks.
Sirina buzibu. You go to that branch. Let's start working.
Yes.
Show me.
What you
then
can.
I accept.
Yes.
So that's what I'm doing. So the person goes to the branch, and you know that branch where I send them has mama. And there is something I have learned. Those people have very good skills, very grown-up skills compared to what we have. So as they work with this person is like, oh, you're tied down, so voila. And I'm sorry for talking.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
It's exactly what Baba says.
Yes.
So that one will you not manage.
They'll look right through them. Yes.
And then as they work together, this woman is like, she even can't express herself to the client. You realize she really knows the business.
I hear you.
And then if you insist, in all cases, that person fails.
Beautiful. I think then I have a good one here. I think this one is an investor in the pharmacy. But he's saying, I know you're a pharmacist and can supervise your own pharmacy, reducing the cost. How do you advise a person starting that business and is not a pharmacist? What advice would you give them?
One of the advice is just to do partnerships.
Yeah.
From what I'm realizing, non-pharmacist pharmacies are failing. And it's the reason why we are having extensive sale of pharmacies. This way in the media, you may not be knowing, but outside there, on our pharmaceutical groups, we have a group, a pharmaceutical group, WhatsApp group that is named after me. It is called Team Gonsha, and it has over 256 pharmacists. And they keep posting information. On a daily basis, there are sets of pharmacies on sale that have failed. And when we analyze very well, those pharmacies belong to non-pharmacists. So I would advise that person, if you can't do a partnership, this thing is highly professional. It's for the bright.
I hear you. I hear you.
Not to brag, but to sort of, it is really
you have to
technical.
Have that knowledge.
You have to be good.
I get you. Beautiful. Viewers, I'm really sorry we're unable to answer quite many questions now, but I can guarantee you we'll go through them and see how to respond. But most importantly, I'm going to tell our panelists today to share their contacts. You can actually reach out to them directly. I'll start with you, Dr. Gonza, our guest. How can our viewers reach you if they want it?
How you reach me, I work in Extra Care Pharmacies. You can come to Extra Care Pharmacy Mirembe, at Mirembe stage in Gayaza. You will get me. You can come to Extra Care Pharmacy at Multiple Center. There is a mall opposite Shell in Gayaza. The mall is called Multiple Center. It is along that road that goes to Gayaza Chigo, the church of the Catholic Church. Along that road there is an Extra Care Pharmacy. You can find me there. Beautiful. And then you can also ask for me in Extra Care Pharmacy in Nalukolongo. And if you can't come physically, I'm available both on WhatsApp and on call. On MTN 0775 15 28 51. Call me, we do deliveries, we do online interventions. We can be able to save your life if you reach us. And I encourage people to come and support us. Beautiful.
Ronald, your number again?
Yes. First of all, the offices of Enterprise Uganda along Lumumba Avenue, plot 38. Please join us there. You can look for our website. You can follow us on Twitter, Enterprise Uganda. My contact is 0782 388 091. You can send me a WhatsApp on that number. You can call me. I'm also available on Twitter. The handle is Ronald Mukasa SS. And also on LinkedIn. You can look for Ronald Mukasa on LinkedIn. Please, entrepreneurs out there, we encourage you. Engage with us at Enterprise Uganda. We believe that that we can be able to grow together. Dr. Gonsha's journey is just one of many journeys we have participated in, and we believe that we can be able to make businesses work and be able to transform our country.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, viewers. That's all we had time for. It's a show brought to you by Enterprise Uganda and Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. We're committed to actually see you succeed in your business. I've been your host, Charles Boji. Until next time, have a good evening and God bless.